Just want to show off a little bit of what we're doing here. This is at my home, just messing around. This is where I get the opportunity to play around with a whole bunch of different things and see how they turn out. So what we're doing here is we planted some dwarf everbearing mulberries here. That's what you're seeing in these shrubs. And these shrubs were planted last spring. Right now it's August, the middle of August, and these were planted a year and a half ago as probably 12-inch tall trees. So they were very, very small when we planted them. And you can see they've gotten to be 10, 12 feet tall, something like that, in the time since. And again, they were started very small. Some of these are just now starting to fill out. Looks like all of these should be have hit their max size by this time next year, is my guess. Some of them were kind of slow taking off, and some of them got browsed a little bit heavy. They kept getting picked at. You see, we use these tree tubes around the base, but sometimes the chicken would hop up on there and would peck away at the leaves. So some of these got a little bit stunted last year, but you can see that they've recovered quite well. They're all on their way to 10, 12 feet tall, and they'll probably get to be 8 feet wide or so. Look at this. I just noticed this. We've got some mulberries forming here on the new growth. Again, this is August. That's pretty remarkable. I don't know if there's any others that are doing that, but that's a really interesting thing right there. These did bear for at least a month and a half, even though they were quite young. I see a couple other trees with just a couple mulberries forming. That's pretty cool. So you see right here, right by this hen, there's a stick connected to a tree that is dead. So what this is, I had a couple fast-growing willows planted in here. I just put live stakes in there, and they worked really, really well the first year. They got up and provided a little bit of shade really quick. But you can see there at the base, these actually got stripped in the spring. Now the spring is when the sap flows and the bark is less hardy. So they were able to strip it during that time, and they killed off all of our willows and these did not have the protection of a tree guard. So it wouldn't be much to put a little bit of a tree guard on there and keep them protected if you wanted to keep those, but they kind of served their purpose here in quick shade for the first year. And in most situations where you don't have this level of density, you wouldn't have that kind of pressure. We've got about a dozen layers here in a relatively small space, so they get a little bit bored and they peck away at things. So these dwarf mulberries have come in very nicely, and the girls love to hang out underneath them, especially on a day like today when it's really hot. They like the dense shade. You can see this is a conifer that we threw in here during the winter time, because at that point it was full of needles and it provided a little bit of a windbreak for their door. So rather than the wind just rushing through this area and hitting the inside of their coop, they had a little bit of protected space outside of here, and now they like to just sit in on it and hang out on what's left of the tree. So we'll probably take it out here and maybe make space for another conifer to throw in here around Christmas time. It's basically just an old tall Christmas tree, and this would be a great thing to be able to throw in here for just a little bit of enrichment during the winter months and be able to provide a little bit of a sheltered space during that time. These dwarf everbearing mulberries, they did die back. They had some top kill. We had one of the coldest winter that I can remember this last year. So a lot of them died back a couple of feet, but they're growing back really nicely, as you can tell. Like, that's at least 12 feet tall right now, and they're very bushy, and they started to yield this spring. So I should note that even though they had only been one season in the ground, and they'd started from a 1 foot tall little tiny tree, they yielded this spring already. So we should see, and they yield on second year wood. So right now we have like all of this is going to be second year wood. So we should have just a ton of fruit production coming into next year now that these are established and they're getting nice and wide. So you see, let's see if we can zoom in and focus in on that little fruit. It doesn't want to focus very well for me, but we do have a little bit of fruit forming here. It's not much, but it'll be a little bit of a treat for the ladies in probably the end of August by the time that they ripen. So this is kind of fun. It's very simple. These are very easy to manage, very easy to control on a small scale. And then for us, we just have a whole bunch of other things around, like elderberries and aronias, and we have persimmons that we'll just throw in here as well, but they aren't necessarily included in this space. So there we go. A very simple way to integrate shade, cover, shelter, and also fruit production for chickens that fits in a really small area. Like one full-size mulberry would be enough, or maybe even too much for this area, or it would be bigger than this whole pen. But we can fit a couple shrubs, and they like that really low cover that they can hang out underneath and feel very secure underneath there.